Luxe City is in the midst of an epileptic insomnia. Only the dead sleep at a time like this, but their memories are different. I've poured at least 5 cans of coffee into myself in the last hour, and now it's coming out of my system in a hot stream, processed. The night sky was filled with the flashing lights of an airplane flying over the city. Having done my business, I buckled my seatbelt and climbed out of the bushes back onto the road. Raz was waiting in the car on the side of the road, studying the screen of his tablet and smoking, using a can of half-drunk cold latte as an ashtray. The radio was playing smoking music. Raz's frowning face was frozen in mild disappointment over his dirty jacket. Half an hour ago, our client had cheerfully vomited right onto his sleeve. Having finished the neuro reading, I was explaining the reason for the missing little finger on the corpse's hand. The deceased cut half his finger while playing with knives and then tried to sew the dangling phalanx of the finger with a stationary stapler. But nothing came of it. After my story, the stomach of one of the deceased's acquaintances gave in, and Rats, holding the jacket in his hand, happened to be nearby. Before continuing the work shift, we dropped the jacket off at a 24-hour dry cleaner. There I also drank my fill of cheap coffee. "Is there any more work for today?" I asked, returning to the car. "Via Provinciale 33, answered Raz and released the handbrake. He handed me the tablet and slowly drove out onto the road, near the Orbital bar. The bartender went out for a smoke and found a girl's body inside a street code machine. Either she died while in virtual reality, or her body was dumped in the code machine afterward. I thought out loud, I wonder if it is possible to install your own code machine in a bar. I think so. The government does not prohibit it. Only its maintenance will come back to haunt you. Raz rubbed his thumb against his index finger. Maintenance and software updates will cost a pretty penny. I intuitively rubbed my fingers too. Although almost 2 hours had passed since the last neuro reading, I still felt other people's thoughts in the garbage of my own. For example, the severed little finger did not give me peace. Frowning foolishly, I checked for it and calmly exhaled. We got to Orbital in about 10 minutes. The bar greeted us with a soft flicker of neon palm trees and a powerful jazz accompaniment on digital synthesizers. The light was intimately dimmed. The lights of the palm leaves played overexposure on the bottle glass of the bar collection. But we didn't have time to enjoy the atmosphere of the bar for long. A flushed bartender with a double chin led us through the back exit to the street, where the corpse was located. There was a quiet corner here, an offshoot of a sleepless pedestrian alley. Streams of people walked along the illuminated avenue and could not even imagine that a dead person was lying 30 meters away from them. The dead girl leaned sideways against the inner wall of the code machine, frozen with wild eyes and hands clenched into fists. The tip of her tongue was tightly clamped between her teeth. There were fresh red abrasions on her cheek, bruises on her left eyebrow and forehead. There was a wet spot on her jeans in the groin area. "Did you see what happened?" Rats asked, opening the touchpad. "Who took off her deprivation lenses?" "I did," the bartender explained nervously, accompanying each word with a wave of his augmented hand made of blue chrome. "When I first found her, it seemed to me that she was still breathing, and she looked like she had simply fallen asleep drunk. I took off the lenses and the code machine lit up red, as if there had been a glitch or the system had crashed. And they still had." The man was chattering irrelevantly. I coughed tactfully. "Why did you call the immersionist in the first place?" Having interrupted the bartender, I tried not to look at him so as not to cause discomfort. My artificial eyes did not blink, since they did not get tired and did not require moisturizing. This scared some of my interlocutors. Why the immersionist and not the police and an ambulance? "And yes, you called them too, didn't you?" The bartender nodded affirmatively. "Of course. They are already on their way. And I called you first, so there would be no problems." He paused for a second, collecting his thoughts. "You know how it happens. I find a dead person, and there are no witnesses except me. It turns out that I am the main suspect. And if you are here, you will immediately establish the identity of the killer. Why did you decide that she was killed?" I frowned. "See for yourself?" The man pointed to the bloody abrasions on the corpse's face. It looked like she had been beaten. Besides, the main alley was just a stone's throw away. The killer could have jumped out and immediately disappeared into the crowd. "How long ago did you discover the corpse?" Rats asked without looking up from the tablet where he was writing down the information. The bartender glanced at the holographic watch in his artificial hand. "About 15 minutes ago you arrived." "Oh, it's been a long time since we've had such fresh carrion." "Right, Rats." Smiling, I exchanged glances with my partner. He didn't share my joy, but seriously noted. "So the neuro reading will be without affects. At least you'll save your brains a little." "Excuse me, what do you mean, fresh?" the bartender asked. I had to explain so that he wouldn't imagine too much. In our work, there is a concept of a client's expiration date. If more than 4 hours have passed since the death, I nodded towards the dead girl. Then the neuro reading may not go very smoothly. The fresher the corpse, the easier it is to read its memory. The bartender nodded gratefully, swallowing a lump in his throat. He accidentally glanced into my artificial eyes and immediately looked away. Somewhere in the distance, street musicians were beating out a rhythm on conga drums. Guitars sang in unison with them. The melody was smeared over the noise of the evening city, merging with the voices of cars, people, and advertising holograms. Having finished questioning the bartender, we asked him not to let anyone near us and not to hang around nearby himself. Rats put his tablet aside and began to set up port transcriptor. He checked the fixing frames, calibrated the optical sensor, unwound the neural cable, connected the electrode, needle to its end. Using the camera built into the artificial lens of the eye, I conducted an overview of the crime scene. The pictures were sent to the cloud storage of the police department. Then, together with my partner, we pulled the girl's skinny body out of the Codemachine, laid her on the asphalt, turning her over on her stomach and first placing a soft cloth under her face, all so that her sweet dead face would not rub against the hard surface during stereotaxis. Rats firmly secured the transcriptor to the girl's head using the fixing frames. The optical sensor made a readiness sound, and its eye, moving along the occipital region of the corpse, built the coordinates of the space of the brain of our client. Next to the body, I placed a folding chair with a back, sat down more comfortably, and began to examine the fluorescent sticker with a picture of the hippocampus that was adorned on the body of the port transcriptor, a smiling horse's muzzle with a blue fishtail. It was as if it were a reminder to us. Take your work with a grain of irony. If you take it too seriously, you can easily go crazy. My partner gave me a headband with eyepieces on the front and earphones on the sides. When I put it on, the music of the street musicians died down, as if they were locked behind thick glass, without looking up from the tablet where he was writing down the information. The bartender glanced at the holographic watch in his artificial hand. "It's been about 15 minutes since you arrived." "Oh, it's been a long time since we've had such fresh carrion." "Yes, Rats?" Smiling, I exchanged glances with my partner. He did not share my joy but only seriously noted, "So the neuro reading will be without affects. At least you'll save your brains a little." "Excuse me, what do you mean, fresh?" the bartender asked. I had to explain so that he wouldn't imagine too much. In our work, there is a concept of a client's expiration date. If more than 4 hours have passed since death, I nodded towards the dead girl, then the neuro reading may not go very smoothly. The fresher the corpse, the easier it is to read its memory. The bartender nodded gratefully, swallowing a lump in his throat. He accidentally looked into my artificial eyes and immediately looked away. Somewhere in the distance, street musicians were beating out a rhythm on conga drums. Guitars were singing in unison. The melody was smeared across the noise of the evening city, merging with the voices of cars, people, and advertising holograms. Having finished questioning the bartender, we asked him not to let anyone near us and not to hang around nearby. Rats put down the tablet and began to set up port transcriptor. He checked the fixing frames, calibrated the optical sensor, unwound the neural cable, and connected the electrode, needle to its end. Using the camera built into the artificial lens of the eye, I took an overview of the crime scene. The pictures were sent to the police department's cloud storage. Then, together with my partner, we pulled the girl's thin body out of Codemachine, laid her on the asphalt, turning her over on her stomach and first placing a soft cloth under her face. Anything to keep her cute little dead face from rubbing against a hard surface during stereotaxis. Rats firmly secured the transcriptor to the girl's head using the fixing frames. The optical sensor made a readiness sound, and its eye, moving along the occipital region of the corpse, built the coordinates of the space of the brain of our client. Next to the body, I placed a folding chair with a back, sat down more comfortably, and began to examine the fluorescent sticker with the picture of the hippocampus that was adorned on the body of the port transcriptor, a smiling horse's muzzle with a blue fish tail. It seemed to remind us, take your work with a grain of irony. If you take it too seriously, you can easily go crazy. My partner gave me a headband with eyepieces located on the front part and headphones on the sides. When I put it on, the music of the street musicians died down, as if they were locked behind thick glass, without looking up from the tablet where he was writing down the information. The bartender glanced at the holographic watch in his artificial hand. It's been about 15 minutes since you arrived. Oh, it's been a long time since we've had such fresh carrion. Yes, rats? Smiling, I exchanged glances with my partner. He did not share my joy, but only seriously noted. So the neuro reading will be without affects. At least you'll save your brains a little. Excuse me. What do you mean, fresh? The bartender asked. I had to explain so that he wouldn't imagine too much. In our work, there is a concept of a client's expiration date. If more than 4 hours have passed since death, I nodded towards the dead girl, then the neuro reading may not go very smoothly. The fresher the corpse, the easier it is to read its memory. The bartender nodded gratefully, swallowing a lump in his throat. He accidentally looked into my artificial eyes and immediately looked away. Somewhere in the distance, street musicians were beating out a rhythm on conga drums. Guitars were singing in unison. The melody was smeared across the noise of the evening city, merging with the voices of cars, people, and advertising holograms. Having finished questioning the bartender, we asked him not to let anyone near us and not to hang around nearby. Rats put down the tablet and began to set up port transcriptor. He checked the fixing frames, calibrated the optical sensor, unwound the neural cable, and connected the electrode, needle to its end. Using the camera built into the artificial lens of the eye, I took an overview of the crime scene. The pictures were sent to the police department's cloud storage. Then, together with my partner, we pulled the girl's thin body out of Codemachine, laid her on the asphalt, turning her over on her stomach and first placing a soft cloth under her face, anything to keep her cute little dead face from rubbing against a hard surface during stereotaxis. Rats firmly secured the transcriptor to the girl's head using the fixing frames. The optical sensor made a readiness sound, and its eye, moving along the occipital region of the corpse, built the coordinates of the space of the brain of our client. Next to the body, I placed a folding chair with a back, sat down more comfortably, and began to examine the fluorescent sticker with a picture of the hippocampus that was adorned on the body of the port transcriptor, a smiling horse's muzzle with a blue fish tail. It seemed to remind us, take your work with a grain of irony. If you take it too seriously, you can easily go crazy. My partner gave me a headband with eyepieces located on the front part and headphones on the sides. When I put it on, the music of the street musicians died down, as if they were locked behind thick glass. What do you mean, fresh? Asked the bartender. I had to explain so that he wouldn't get too carried away. In our line of work, there's a concept called a client's expiration date. If more than 4 hours have passed since death, I nodded toward the dead girl, then the neural reading might not go very smoothly. The fresher the corpse, the easier it is to read its memory. The bartender nodded gratefully, swallowing the lump in his throat. He accidentally glanced into my artificial eyes and immediately looked away. Somewhere in the distance, street musicians were beating out a rhythm on conga drums. Guitars were singing in unison with them. The melody was smeared over the noise of the evening city, merging with the voices of cars, people, and advertising holograms. Having finished questioning the bartender, we asked him not to let anyone near us and not to hang around nearby. Rats put his tablet aside and began to set up port transcriptor. He checked the fixing frames, calibrated the optical sensor, unwound the neural cable, and connected the electrode, needle to its end. Using a camera built into the artificial lens of the eye, I took a general survey of the crime scene. The images were sent to the police department's cloud storage. Then, together with my partner, we pulled the girl's skinny body out of the Codemachine, laid her on the asphalt, turning her over on her stomach and first placing a soft cloth under her face, all so that her sweet dead face would not rub against the hard surface during stereotaxis. Rats firmly secured the transcriptor to the girl's head using fixing frames. The optical sensor made a readiness sound, and its eye, moving along the occipital region of the corpse, built the coordinates of the brain space of our client. Next to the body, I placed a folding chair with a back, sat comfortably, and began to examine the fluorescent sticker with a drawing of the hippocampus that was adorned on the port transcriptor's body. A smiling horse face with a blue fishtail. It was a reminder. Take your job with a grain of salt. If you take it too seriously, you can easily go crazy. My partner gave me a headband with glasses on the front and headphones on the sides. When I put it on, the music of the street musicians died down, as if they were locked behind thick glass. "What do you mean, fresh?" asked the bartender. I had to explain so that he wouldn't get too carried away. In our line of work, there's a concept called a client's expiration date. If more than 4 hours have passed since death, I nodded toward the dead girl, then the neural reading might not go very smoothly. The fresher the corpse, the easier it is to read its memory. The bartender nodded gratefully, swallowing the lump in his throat. He accidentally glanced into my artificial eyes and immediately looked away. Somewhere in the distance, street musicians were beating out a rhythm on conga drums. Guitars were singing in unison with them. The melody was smeared over the noise of the evening city, merging with the voices of cars, people, and advertising holograms. Having finished questioning the bartender, we asked him not to let anyone near us and not to hang around nearby. Rats put his tablet aside and began to set up port transcriptor. He checked the fixing frames, calibrated the optical sensor, unwound the neural cable, and connected the electrode, needle to its end. Using a camera built into the artificial lens of the eye, I took a general survey of the crime scene. The images were sent to the police department's cloud storage. Then, together with my partner, we pulled the girl's skinny body out of the Codemachine, laid her on the asphalt, turning her over on her stomach and first placing a soft cloth under her face, all so that her sweet dead face would not rub against the hard surface during stereotaxis. Rats firmly secured the transcriptor to the girl's head using fixing frames. The optical sensor made a readiness sound, and its eye, moving along the occipital region of the corpse, built the coordinates of the brain space of our client. Next to the body, I placed a folding chair with a back, sat comfortably and began to examine the fluorescent sticker with a drawing of the hippocampus that was adorned on the port transcriptor's body. A smiling horse face with a blue fishtail. It was a reminder. Take your job with a grain of salt. If you take it too seriously, you can easily go crazy. My partner gave me a headband with glasses on the front and headphones on the sides. When I put it on, the music of the street musicians died down, as if they were locked behind thick glass. Checked the fixing frames, calibrated the optical sensor, unwound the neural cable, connected the electrode needle to its end. Using the camera built into the artificial lens of the eye, I conducted an overview of the crime scene. The pictures were sent to the police department's cloud storage. Then, together with my partner, we pulled the girl's thin body out of the Codemachine, laid her on the asphalt, turning her over on her stomach and first placing a soft cloth under her face, all so that her cute dead face would not rub against the hard surface during stereotaxis. Raz tightly secured the transcriptor to the girl's head using the fixing frames. The optical sensor made a readiness sound, and its eye, moving along the occipital region of the corpse, built the coordinates of the space of the brain of our client. I placed a folding chair with a back next to the body, sat down more comfortably, and began to examine the fluorescent sticker with a drawing of a hippocampus that adorned the body. Of the port transcriptor, a smiling horse's face with a blue fishtail. It seemed to remind us, take your work with a grain of salt. If you take it too seriously, you can easily go crazy. My partner gave me a headband with eyepieces located in the front and headphones on the sides. When I put it on, the melody of street musicians died down, as if they were locked behind thick glass. Checked the fixing frames, calibrated the optical sensor, unwound the neural cable, connected the electrode needle to its end. Using the camera built into the artificial lens of the eye, I conducted an overview of the crime scene. The pictures were sent to the police department's cloud storage. Then, together with my partner, we pulled the girl's thin body out of the Codemachine, laid her on the asphalt, turning her over on her stomach and first placing a soft cloth under her face, all so that her cute dead face would not rub against the hard surface during stereotaxis. Raz tightly secured the transcriptor to the girl's head using the fixing frames. The optical sensor made a readiness sound, and its eye, moving along the occipital region of the corpse, built the coordinates of the space of the brain of our client. I placed a folding chair with a back next to the body, sat down more comfortably, and began to examine the fluorescent sticker with a drawing of a hippocampus that adorned the body. Of the port transcriptor, a smiling horse's face with a blue fishtail. It seemed to remind us, take your work with a grain of salt. If you take it too seriously, you can easily go crazy. My partner gave me a headband with eyepieces located in the front and headphones on the sides. When I put it on, the melody of street musicians died down, as if they were locked behind thick glass. The eye of the transcriptor finished navigation and determined the necessary intracerebral point, after which its hand delicately inserted the stereotaxic instrument into the skull. The electrode needle half disappeared inside the girl's head. Thickening at the exit, the needle passed into a neural cable, which was connected to the port transcriptor monitor and came out on the other side. Rats transmitted the other end of the cable to me. Localization completed. How will you be ready? Just don't let my brain sleep, rats. I answered and plugged the cable into the headband connector. The eyepieces pressed tightly to my face. The headphones settled more tightly in the auricles. Current began to run in my head. Disorientation and partial depersonalization slowly overtook me. Falling into an alien reality, I heard rats start counting 1003, 1002, 1001. The elevator in the termite mound was not working, and the elevator's shaft served as a huge garbage chute for the locals. They had to climb to the 7th floor on foot. There was no one in the long serpentine corridor. Not a sound was heard except for the heavy breathing of Fat Isidore, dragging his large bulk behind me. Isidore was sweating like a pig from the difficult climb. His shirt was sticking to his body. I was breathing heavily too. Deep breath in through my nose, out through my mouth. I tried to catch my breath before we found the right apartment. "We're here," Fat said, holding his stomach with his hand. I pressed the doorbell button all the way down several times, knocked on the door and getting no result, pointed to the sweaty Isidore at the barrier. He was still trying to catch his breath. "Go ahead." Isidore pulled a Pugach from its holster with the barrel tied with black self-adhesive tape. "With the door, I'm sure you can handle it. Aren't you afraid that I'll shoot myself off?" "Just don't point the gun at yourself." I awkwardly took the Pugach from Fatso's hands and pointed the semi-automatic sawed-off shotgun at the locked door. Shot. And Pugach's impudence threw me back into the wall and shattered the door handle into tiny pieces. "Knock knock, you sons of bitches." Giving off his sweetest evil smile, Isidore flew into the apartment with the telescopic baton. I tried to hide the Pugach in my jacket, but the huge firearm wouldn't fit in any of my pockets. And Isidore didn't have a holster like Fatso's. "We're too late. There's no one here, Dora," Fatso said sadly, folded the baton and put it behind his belt. "Give me back the pugach, sister. I'm afraid it's too heavy for you." Taking the sawed-off shotgun, he headed for the kitchen. I went into the main room, looked around, and turned on the thermal imager built into the cornea of the eye. When using it, I had to close the second artificial eye, so I covered half of my face with my palm. My vision changed from normal to infrared. The dirty apartment in the pale, high-tech style was illuminated by a gradient of temperature radiation. There were no walls separating the living room and the kitchen, and I clearly heard Isidore's foul language as he looked for something edible to throw into his belly. In the kitchen, he was smashing the shelves of the refrigerator, accompanying his actions with an irritated hiss. "Bastards. Is there really nothing here? They ran away and didn't even leave any food." I turned around and told him to shut up. "All you want is to eat, Izya. Shut up. We're not alone here." "How come?" The fat man tore himself away from the refrigerator. I checked every corner. Not a single vermin in the apartment. I pierced him with an irritated look. "Have you checked the closet?" No." He shrugged guiltily. "Sorry, I didn't think of that." Fatso unsheathed the bugach again and approached the closet with a furious roar. "But I'll check now." With a sharp jerk, he threw open the closet door, holding the barrel of the sawed-off shotgun in front of him. But someone had already gotten ahead of him. Inside, a dead guy with an extra hole in his stomach lay tied hand and foot. Here we go." Isidore sighed, puzzled, turning to face me. "I'll call Liuba, and you sit quietly." "The boss? Are you sure?" He scratched his nostril worriedly. "If we tell her, we'll be left without a bonus. And you suggest we not tell her about the corpse?" Okay, you're right." The fat man returned to the kitchen, and I took out my phone and dialed Liuba's number. A second later, an image of a dark-haired woman in a white jacket and black tie appeared on the screen. "Dora Wainwright?" "Good evening, Miss Loft. We have a situation with debtors at 111 Premier Square. What kind of situation is this?" Liuba's voice, cold as steel, not at all like a woman's, was transmitted straight into my head. "You see, Isidore and I didn't find anyone in the apartment. No one alive. So. Only a corpse in the closet. You and your brother have photographs of the debtors, right? The body doesn't look like any of them. Describe it, please." Nothing to describe. A young guy with a mohawk. Looks like some kind of punk. He was shot in the gut. Got it. Look, does the guy have a tattoo on his shoulder? I carefully lifted the corpse's arm, turning up the sleeve of his t-shirt. Yes, a tattoo of a skull. Good. Don't touch anything else there, my dears. Call the police on an anonymous number and get out of here. Miss Loft hung up. The screen went dark. Fat Isidore was walking around the apartment, assessing its sloppy, beggarly renovation. I wiped the closet door from traces of Isidore's sweaty hands, while remembering what I myself could have touched in the apartment. Oh yeah, the fat idiot probably left a bunch of greasy fingers in the kitchen and, in particular, on the refrigerator. Here, take it. I threw Isidore a rag. Wipe everything you touched, and we're getting out of here. And the body? None of our business. That's what Liuba said. That's all my lines. Caleb plays his part from now on, and now the shuriken should go off. I reminded myself mentally. Isidore obediently wandered into the kitchen when a shiny star flew out of the wall hiding the shower. The silver chrome shuriken stuck into the wall 1/2 meter from Fat Man. "Duck!" he squealed and instantly pulled the scarecrow out of its holster. I plopped down on the floor. Isidore fired several times in the direction of the invisible attacker, then rushed to the shower stall. With his huge hands, he tore apart the plasterboard wall and pulled a wounded man in a motorcycle helmet out of hiding. In a fit of rage, Fat Man grabbed the attacker's head, dragged him along the floor, and methodically, as if opening a coconut, smashed the masked head on the concrete floor. Sis, I finished off the bastard. We need to get out of here. Lyuba set us up. The camera centers on Isidore's face for a few seconds, capturing his savage expression from all angles. Fatso and I freeze in place, waiting for the command. A loud shout from outside ends the stunning scene. Cut! The 6th take in a row, and finally we managed it. Caleb, who plays Fat Isidore, wiped the sweat from his forehead, puffed contentedly, rose from the floor and helped me up. We exchanged tired smiles. The animatronic robot, whose head Isidore had smashed half a minute ago, was carefully dragged off the set by the technical props assistants. Harley, who plays the shot punk, awkwardly crawled out of the closet, holding his mohawk swinging from side to side. The makeup assistants helped him remove the fake wound from the bullet wound. Lanky Ramis, a supporting actor who only appears at the end of the series, brought Caleb and me a bottle of cold mineral water each. Everyone was afraid that the shuriken would bounce off the wall again like last time, Ramis said, gently throwing off my and Caleb's jackets. I thought you were going to get my tattoo wrong. Harley grinned good-naturedly at me. Caleb laughed, rubbing his leg. I think I hurt my knee fighting the robot. Sandra, give them here, or you'll go home wearing them again. Makeup artist Callie took my lenses that imitate artificial pupils. A doctor was called for Caleb, who was limping. The film set was in full swing. Some congratulated him on the successful completion of the workday, while others bustled about, packing up equipment and dismantling the scenery. The director of photography was ordering the lighting crew where to put the lighting equipment. The nervous logger was rushing from one cameraman to another, copying the footage to the cloud drive. Aurora, come here, please! The director shouted, trying to be heard over the voices of the film crew busy cleaning up the equipment. A woman in a white jacket, black tie, and short sports shorts rose from the table in the corner of the pavilion. Taking a folder with papers and a netbook under her arm, Aurora did not keep him waiting and hurried to the director. Since it was enough to watch only the upper part of her body to film the negotiations with Miss Loft, Aurora was allowed to wear only a shirt and a jacket. Everything below the waist was not included in the frame, so she remained in her home clothes, shorts and worn-out sneakers. Aurora walked around the set all day in this funny look. On the project, she acted as a leading actress and head writer. I looked at the statistics yesterday, Ramis began. If our series is moved a couple of hours earlier from 1 a.m., then we almost hit prime time. Is that good or bad? Callie asked. Well, more people will see Caleb's antics, I quipped. By the way, Caleb, weren't you invited to host Horse Twists? Harley had already taken off his fake mohawk and now joined the conversation. I heard they have huge ratings. No, I said no. Caleb drank an entire bottle of water and was now fanning himself with it. They don't pay enough. What is Horse Twists? I asked warily, looking at Harley. A new show where different people compete, doing all sorts of nasty things for a lot of money, and one of the main competitions is called Horse Twists, where the participant is knee-deep in horse vomit and needs to find a coin at the bottom of this vomit, and they only have about 5 minutes to do this while the room continues to fill with vomit. Ugh, poor horses. How many horses do you need to exterminate? Caleb raised one eyebrow skeptically. I don't think the vomit is real, Ramis noted, but the fact that people watch this. Aurora came up to us. Okay, boys and girls, bad news. Wait. Caleb unbuttoned a few buttons on his shirt, freeing his fat belly. Now I'm ready. Talk. First of all, if you don't know, they want to run the series until 10 in the evening, instead of midnight, as originally. Primetime, as I said. Ramis nodded. But that means kids might accidentally spy on us, Aurora continued. And the series is now softening its age rating. So the directors and I need to get rid of all the obscenities as soon as possible. Can you imagine? She sighed. No blood, swearing, sex, or dismemberment. Everything needs to be changed radically. Can I have a drink? I gave my friend a bottle of mineral water. She rinsed her mouth and finished. And yes, there won't be a bed scene between Dorothy and Isidore either. Well, incest is off. Caleb threw up his hands. And what did the director say? I asked. The texts need to be edited by tomorrow. Aurora untied her tie and took a can of beer out of her inside jacket pocket. She folded the tie and put it in her shorts. We'll have to rewrite the dialogues all night, she giggled nervously. I'll try to send you your new lines as soon as possible. Meanwhile, having sorted out all the organizational issues, the chief director took the megaphone, climbed higher so that he could be seen from everywhere, and thanked the film crew. There won't be a bed scene between Dorothy and Isidore either. Well, incest is off, Caleb shrugged. And what did the director say? I asked. The texts need to be edited by tomorrow. Aurora untied her tie and took a can of beer from her inside jacket pocket. She folded the tie and put it in her shorts. She'll have to rewrite the dialogue all night. She giggled nervously. I'll try to send you your new lines as soon as possible. In the meantime, having sorted out all the organizational issues, the director took a megaphone, climbed higher so that he could be seen from everywhere, and thanked the film crew. There won't be a bed scene between Dorothy and Isidore either. Well, incest is off, Caleb shrugged. And what did the director say? I asked. The texts need to be edited by tomorrow. Aurora untied her tie and took a can of beer from her inside jacket pocket. She folded the tie and put it in her shorts. She'll have to rewrite the dialogue all night, she giggled nervously. I'll try to send you your new lines as soon as possible. In the meantime, having sorted out all the organizational issues, the director took a megaphone, climbed higher so that he could be seen from everywhere, and thanked the film crew. Thank you all for your work. You did a great job today. It's getting late. The studio will be closing soon, so good night, everyone. But tomorrow is our day off? I looked questioningly at Aurora. Yes, tomorrow is filming scenes in the morgue and cryo chambers. You and Caleb are not needed there. The woman frowned, remembering something. Harley, have you forgotten that you need to be on the set by 6:20? How long will you be doing his makeup, Kelly? At least an hour. Did you hear? Then 5:20 would be better. 5 in the morning? And when do you go to bed? Harley crossed his arms over his chest. Never. I'm not going to sleep at all tonight. Aurora opened a beer and took a few greedy sips. It's cold. After taking a shower and changing, I left the filming studio somewhere around 7. Having dived into the crowd, which had exhaled freely with the onset of evening, I found an unoccupied patch of space in the subway car. It seemed that at that moment the whole of Luxe was returning home. I barely squeezed in between a woman in a coat and an old man chewing his own tongue. In the earphones distracting from the real world, the radio hosts chatted. Did you hear, Kiyoshi? The annual film award was given to a film created by neural networks. I thought they only knew how to undress girls in photographs, Kiyoshi said dejectedly. Oh, you're behind the times, the second host laughed. I'm not interested in such topics, you know that, Takeshi. I'm more into music. So they already write music. I'll send it to you. You can listen to it after the broadcast. No need. I'm a fan of the good old classics, Kiyoshi answered. Yes, listen to it. You won't regret it. Takeshi kept up. This is definitely something our listeners won't regret. It's the next track. The legendary Sultans of Swing are already on the air. Oh, you old man. We'll go into the future without you. And we'll take the neural networks with us. It's from this kind of future that people hide in virtuality, the hosts laughed. Guitar riffs began to sound in the Shell headphones. On the opposite wall, a holographic advertisement trembled in time with the shaking carriage. A policeman was looking under the skirt of an android woman who was bashfully covering her mouth with her hand. Do androids think about electrolust? A new sci-fi comedy with notes of amazing body horror. In an alternative universe, the fourth law of robotics states, a robot must satisfy human needs in all positions and any scenarios. The production of new models of android pleasers has been put on stream. But what will this lead to? The advertisement is changed to another one. The human face alternately frowned, smiled widely, and seriously raised its eyes to the sky. The right half of the face belonged to Luther King, and the left to Mahatma Gandhi. "Our salvation is in unity," the hologram proclaimed. "There are billions of us, but we are strangers to each other. Let's hold hands, and no one will be alone online." A few seconds later, another advertising hologram appeared. A man in a red jacket raised one eyebrow, clenched a cigarette in his teeth, the smoke from which turned into the text, "I hate this hole." A pseudo-documentary video essay in which a famous gonzo journalist will walk through all the seedy places of our city. He is sure you have not yet seen the real seamy side of the city of Luxe. Karaoke, slaughterhouses of transhumanists, Buddhist metaphysical sex tourism, and a little spiritual massage of neural cells. "Takeshi, what's new on the internet?" The song ended, the radio hosts returned to the air. Well, the topic of virtual addiction is currently gaining the most discussion. And I read that this year, funding for the production of Codemachines amounted to 3 times more than funding for medicine and healthcare. There are still private clinics, Kyoshi. By the way, the Meridians Corporation spoke out against the development of virtuality, and the corporations from Hecatoncheires, on the contrary, supported it. Yes, I heard about this too, but all this is an advertising show. Both of them do not care at all. In any case, the demand for home code machines has risen now. Takeshi, how are they different from street ones? At the very least, unlimited time, Takeshi made loud slurping sounds. In street ones, you're given no more than an hour of virtuality. What are you drinking there? Whiskey again during the broadcast? Yes. Today before the start, I was just thinking what to choose. Neat whiskey or whiskey with coffee? Are they really allowed to drink alcohol in the studio, or do these two have a specific sense of humor? It's called Takeshi in Irish. Kiyoshi laughed. By the way, that's exactly what the new song by the inimitable Adriana Garod is about. It's on our air right now. While the next song was playing in my headphones, I entertained myself by guessing the gender of the 2 passengers sitting opposite me. It seemed like they were both girls, but I was still confused by the very prominent Adam's apple of one of them. 2 stations later, I flowed out of the train car with a wave of people. We were going to meet Vila at a bar. She chose the place, so after getting up from the metro, I wandered the streets for a few minutes looking for the right address. Orbital was hidden not far from a pedestrian avenue. I never considered myself picky, but the bar seemed rather strange. The pompous neon palm trees did not go well with the jazz repertoire of the last century, and the lighting was clearly not bright enough, which made the eyes strain. You have some taste, Vela. There were only a couple of customers inside, all male, but decently dressed, adequate, chatting and savoring alcohol. At the bar, enjoying the music, a broad-shouldered man was wiping glasses. He didn't pay attention to me until I sat down in front of him. Oh my God, he has an artificial arm. It's creepy. As if reading my thoughts, the bartender deftly tucked the prosthesis under his apron, smiled, and asked what I wanted. I'm just waiting for a friend. We agreed to meet here. You've chosen a nice place. While you're waiting for her, maybe you'd like a drink? Honestly, I don't know much about cocktails. I drink tequila mostly. I can make you a tequila cocktail. Stronger or lighter? Stronger is better, I answered. There's a very tasty cocktail called the Green Fairy. It contains tequila, absinthe, a little rum, melon and orange liqueurs, and an energy drink. Well, let's have that. Just without the energy drink, please. Okay. I'll replace it with soda. He winked good-naturedly and silently got to work. The longer you sit in the orbital, the stronger the feeling of unreality becomes. A separate neon synth world inside the brick buildings. Digital keyboards have a friendly conversation with saxophones, and the soul becomes light and transparent. I was a little worried about the new lines that Aurora would write for Caleb and me. I hope she won't send them the night before filming. Maybe she's already sent them? I checked the new messages on the social network. Silence from the screenwriter. She was online 3 hours ago. In her last correspondence, Aurora complained that she couldn't get a feel for the psychology of the series' main villain, and the science of being alive didn't help her with this. Here's your cocktail. Enjoy. The bartender put an ice-cold glass with a drink of a rich emerald color on the counter. They say the fairy makes wishes come true. If you wish for something and take a sip, the wish will come true in exactly 30 days. True, I haven't checked, but you can try. It's always like this. In the morning we read Bugental, and in the evening we look for ourselves at the bottom of a highball with tequila. I didn't follow the bartender's advice, and without making any wishes, simply sucked the fairy through the straw. After that, the cocktail cherry itself asked to go into my mouth. I looked at the bartender. Despite his slightly gloomy, middle-aged face, the man looked like an open person. Perhaps I'm not the only one who was scared by his artificial hand when we first met. Nowadays, augmentations are only for military personnel, police officers, or disabled people, and he doesn't look like any of them. Although maybe he is a former veteran? In any case, he makes great cocktails. Before I knew it, I had drained half a glass of green fairy. I had to leave the other half. Vela wrote that she couldn't meet me because of work. I really didn't want to continue the evening alone. I remembered how Vela once offered to find me a place in the company where she works, a tester of semiotic virtual plexes. Sounds powerful, and such a tester now earns twice as much as a lousy actor. But then why the hell did I waste 5 years at the Art Academy? And I put all my effort into acting. And for what? To star in a cardboard TV series about debt collectors? I paid for the cocktail and apologized for drinking only half. The bartender smiled. Are you leaving already? Plans have changed. Too bad. Then see you. Have a nice evening. Having left the bar, I got lost again. A strange string of small streets between buildings, and somewhere there was a noisy pedestrian avenue. On the corner I discovered Codemachine by pure chance. I'd like to go into virtuality now and check if Vela is really at work or if she just dumped me and is now lying on a virtual beach. Having sloppily immersed myself in the Codemachine, I closed the plastic door and started the system. The device hummed, vibrated, and issued brand new deprivation lenses and headphones through a special compartment. I forgot that Codemachine gives each user individual peripherals. The glasses pressed tightly to my face. The headphones sat tightly in my ears. The small booth of Codemachine disappeared, and in its place a blue void spread to the horizon. The system requested personal data, but before I entered it through the mental interface, a cloudy ripple passed before my eyes, forcing me to close my eyes. I opened my eyes. Your cocktail? Enjoy. The bartender placed a glass with an emerald-colored drink on the counter. They say, the fairy grants wishes. His words flew past my ears. My head suddenly began to hurt. I sucked in the fairy through a straw, twirled the cocktail cherry in my hands, and looked around warily. Everything looked exactly the same as a minute ago. The bar, jazz, neon palm trees. The bartender was crushing ice in a crusher. I don't understand anything. Excuse me, where's the bathroom? I asked. To the end of the hall and to the right. In the bathroom, above the sinks, a digital mirror hung across the entire wall. In the upper left corner, the weather report was indicated. In the right corner, the time and date. I washed my face and looked at my reflection. What's going on? Is it the alcohol that's making me feel so sick? The face in the mirror didn't answer me right away, but when it spoke, I heard an unfamiliar male voice. How many years have you been digging through other people's dirty laundry? I smiled, or rather my reflection smiled. Yes, I call the memories of corpses dirty laundry. An interesting metaphor, I think. What do you think, Mr. Immersionist? There was a silent pause. It's a pity you can't answer me. You can't talk to memories. And I'm just a memory to you. Just like that dead woman. I pointed my finger at myself. While you're here, I want to sincerely help you. But first I'll tell you about myself. My body didn't obey. My lips moved on their own. I stood rooted to the spot in front of the mirror and talked to my reflection. I did the same thing you're doing now for 5 years. Several dozen immersive readings a week. But my health failed, and I was fired. And how to live without neuro readings I could not imagine. My own memories had long since faded, and I could define myself only through other people's fragments of memory. In professional immersion terms, this is called the syndrome of substituted life. Well, I think you know. And it is really so. In their skins, I pointed my finger at myself again. We do not feel physical pain, but we experience their thoughts, excitement, doubts, and worries. And it is addictive, the reflection side. Only a few remain in our work. The rest quit when they notice that they no longer feel anything. Life slips through the fingers of an immersionist who has taken the affects of neuro readings for reality. I'm sure you are familiar with this. You are familiar, right? In just 24 hours, an immersionist can be in the skin of a crazy teenager, a divorced bachelor, a drug addict, a mother of 3, an office clerk, a prostitute, a famous musician, a military man, or a homeless person on the street. And when the memories of these completely different people overlap, a complete absurdity matures in the head. The poor immersionist flounders in this absurdity. And when you are thoroughly saturated with other people's lives, it is very easy to lose yourself. When I was fired, I plunged into hell. Without fresh neuro readings, I was delirious. Without other people's memories, I was dying. I looked at people and I felt disgusted by the mere thought that the stupid memories of these degenerates had become my nicotine. I thought about going out to a crowded place and blowing everything up. Once, I happened to read the memory of a madman who made children's shells from defective androids and sewed explosives inside. Our task force found him before he carried out his plans. We got distracted. What was I talking about? Yes, I remembered. It took me too long to cope with the pain. But I couldn't say goodbye to my addiction forever. Years of practice and I learned to get into their heads through the Codemachine. There's just one problem. You can't get into the memory of a living person. Only a dead one. I know very little about you. Only that you are of my kind. Neuro reading after neuro reading, not sparing your own psyche. You will face exactly the same hell that I once went through. You are not just addicted to neuro reading, you are completely dependent on it. And that is why I only want to help, to meet you someday. Don't worry, I will find you myself, but only with your consent. And what about Alexandra? Let's pretend that she died inside the Codemachine. Indeed, it was an unfortunate incident. When he finished speaking, something shot into his head, right into the brain. Crushing pain rolled along all the neural grooves, causing convulsions of every single nerve cell. Suddenly the convulsions stopped, took a break, and at that moment the world rolled into a black abyss. Aaron? Raz slapped me lightly on the cheek. Are you okay? Ah, I answered a minute later, coming to my senses in the car. My tongue wouldn't obey me, and for a while we tried to remember what articulate speech was. What happened? You just passed out again? Again. I looked around. Ahead of us was a cargo taxi with a dented rear bumper. Behind us was a family minivan of a bright red, eye-catching color. We were stuck in a traffic jam. So I've already passed out? After the neuro reading, you lost consciousness. But they quickly brought you back to your senses. Did the neuro reading end with an emission? Yes. At the beginning of the 8th minute. An emission is not the most comfortable thing for an immersionist. You don't immediately come to your senses after exiting someone else's memory, but for some time you remain in a semi-faint and drool down your chin. Where are we going, Raz? First to the dry cleaners, we'll pick up my jacket, then I'll take you to Golem. Is Golemidov already in town? The doctor is arriving after midnight tonight. Raz was melancholically switching radio stations, choosing the right music. He stopped at the road to hell. The truck in front of us started moving, moved 1.5 meters and stopped. We followed his example. Wait, so I finished the neuro reading? I asked, looking for the port transcriptor in the back seat. Yes, I did. I recorded a video log. We talked to the police officers and the forensic expert who arrived, and then you lost your mind. To avoid unnecessary questions, I didn't tell my partner that I didn't remember the client's last memories at all. And I also don't remember how I came to consciousness afterwards. That rarely happened to me. Let's see now. You copied the log to your tablet, right? I asked. Yes, Raz answered. It's in my bag. First, I loaded port transcriptor and checked the date and time of the last neuro reading. Then I took out my tablet and carefully read the general phrases of the protocol. Alexandra Podsiadlo, Gerka G. Lux, 27 years old, found dead in a semi-recumbent position inside the Codemachine, at the address Provinciale 33, Block A. Date time of neuro reading is X Kisk 2243. Responsible specialists. Senior lieutenants. Rat Pogrishek. Aaron Izula. Immersionists conclusion. Immersive memory reading procedure. The Ashram 41. Female. 27 years old. No repeat neuro reading. History of mental disorders. Unspecified. Brain damage. None. Condition at time of death. Mild alcohol intoxication. Duration of neuro reading. 7 minutes 13 seconds. Neuro reading results. Successful. Presumed cause of death. Traumatic asphyxia. The performer's condition after neuro reading with minimal effects. Primary forensic examination conclusion. Death was caused by asphyxia during an epileptic seizure caused by the Codemachine reaction. Superficial abrasions on the cheek could have been caused by trauma during the seizure. I returned the tablet to its place. With minimal effects? So there were no problems with me. The plug in front moved again. Raz started moving and stopped a couple of meters away. When you came to, everything was fine, he said. After some time, the affects began. I should add to the report that the affects did not manifest themselves immediately. How did they manifest themselves? Well, you threw up on the street. You called the officer a xenophobe because he did not shake the bartender's artificial hand. But that's like you. And then you tried to hide in the Codemachine. You said that you did not have time. You need to go home, because the filming will continue the day after tomorrow. Raz fell silent. An airplane flew very low over the city, drowning out his voice. By the way, the forensic expert said that your eye muscle implants are acting up. It seems that the saccades are not synchronized. Really? I tilted my head to the side and looked in the rearview mirror. The left eye is normal, but the right pupil is nervously oscillating from the center of the eyeball to its edge and back. Damn nystagmus. And I didn't even notice. Less than half an hour later, the traffic cleared up and we reached the shopping center. The dry cleaner was on the ground floor. At the entrance, a young guy approached us with advertising leaflets. What is your attitude to transhumanism? Don't pass by. Take a quick survey. I showed him my darting pupil, and the barker left us alone. In the center of the hall, a hologram of a statue of David covering his nakedness with a tunic shimmered. Neon text hovered around it advertising cheap virtual servers. You don't have to wake up. Your dreams finally look like reality. Raz, did you tell the dispatcher that we're done? For today, back in orbital. I sat down on a free bench in the hall. God, how I want a drink. A drink? Raz remained standing, looking at the mighty silhouette of David. After the golem clears my brain, will you take me back to that bar? I liked it there, whatever you say. There was a huge screen hanging from the ceiling, broadcasting commercials. Perhaps it was a separate kind of leisure to sit and stare at commercials in a night shopping center. Would you like a drink with me? I asked. Rat scratched his head sheepishly. Sorry, Aaron, I promised my wife and daughter to order Codemachine tomorrow. Installation and connection will take all day. Oh, right. I always forget that you are a married man. No hard feelings. Rats could not lie about anything related to his personal life. I smiled. Oh, these family people. Then let's have some coffee. Suddenly my nose started bleeding, my eyes darkened. Damn. Here you go. Rats handed me a handkerchief with embroidered yellow ducks, not the first time today. It's time for you to retire, my friend. At 30? And what will I do? Open a bar? My friend grinned and rolled his eyes. The joke about the bar has become our traditional joke. Once upon a time, Raz dreamed of opening a bar in retirement, to make the interior in Japanese style, to come up with his own original cocktails, but he would never have had enough money or nerves for this. At least take a vacation, Aaron. You don't spare your body at all. He gave me a pill. Someday your brain will not withstand the overload of neuro readings and will leak out of your ears. My gaze lingered on the counter with lemon soda, energy drinks with an aphrodisiac, and the lemon girls selling energy drinks to passers-by. That's the joke, Raz. This is Russian roulette. I folded my palm into the shape of a pistol and put it to my temple. I'm hooked on neuro readings. This is no longer a job but a drug. I pulled the trigger. In 3 years of working as an immersionist, other people's memories are more comfortable to me than my own. Bam! The pistol from my fingers fired an invisible bullet into my head. Rat shook his head, opened his mouth, about to say something but changed his mind. Okay, I'll wait here, I said, wiping the blood from under my nose. Okay. He headed to the dry cleaners. You can keep the handkerchief. There were about 15 minutes left until midnight. Rats hadn't returned yet. I was sitting on the first floor of the shopping center, lightly dozing, looking around. After the pill, it seemed to me that my thoughts, like the people around me, were moving at an accelerated pace. Meanwhile, the city got its second wind with the onset of night. Night dwellers wandered past, talking about something, laughing, arguing, joking, stopping and continuing to walk. Fragments of their phrases jammed the gears in my head. And now she's going to teach me how to raise a child? A woman in a business suit was talking to someone on a wireless interface. Several brightly painted teenagers with milkshakes passed by. Dude, it was a shame you didn't join the crowd. You should have seen how the entire internet burned down from this. A colorful advertisement with a dancing holographic body in pink leggings was broadcast on a huge screen under the ceiling. Can't decide? No need. On even days you're a guy, and on odd days you're a girl. With our technology, it's all simple. Then the ad changed, and in its place there was something about nanorobots for the intestines, and also about virtual worlds. Here they are, witnesses of the fifth industrial revolution, I thought. Their future in the infinity of virtual gamadas. Although what's wrong with that? Someone else's reality is more familiar to us than our own. It's time to admit it. But no one will leave this reality forever. God, how stifling you were. It's simply impossible. A young girl with an animated tattoo on her neck laughed at a guy who was proving something to her and her friend. 2 tall men sat down on the next bench. The bearded man with glasses seriously said to the second, I never understood why gynoids get fake boobs. And you can't really touch them. They're not made of fibroplast like their faces, but entirely of duralumin. Everything that was happening seemed unreal. It seemed to me that I was still conducting a neuro reading, sitting in someone else's head, looking through someone else's eyes. And it seemed that I saw it all. I was scrolling frame by frame for the 100th time. My distracted attention was drawn to a new commercial. On the screen, a man in a horse mask was holding several men and women on leashes. The participants will receive huge amounts of money and difficult tests. And in the final, the best of the best will bathe in horse turns and compete for the main prize. I'm glad Caleb turned down the hosting gig. He would have looked ridiculous on this show. Never thought about it. But how interesting is my acting? I pulled out my phone and checked for new messages. Nothing but a low battery warning. Shit. Aurora still hasn't sent me my lines for the next shoot. Shit. And I have to remember to renew my subscription to... Wait, what are you talking about? What Caleb? What the hell is Aurora? Those aren't your memories. Throw them away. Throw them away. The lemon girls I'd spotted earlier were walking around the lobby with a small mobile stand. They were actively advertising citrus energy drinks with an aphrodisiac. Their store on wheels was moving towards me. I covered my right eye with my hand so as not to scare them with my dancing pupil. They stopped 2 or 3 meters away from me. A girl in a yellow skirt, peach-colored tights, and a white sleeveless t-shirt on her naked body happily blushed and began chattering. Try our new flavors with merciless, grapefruit, and enticing lime. Her friend looked straight into my face. Man, buy an energy drink. Together with a miniature counter behind the glass of which cans of fizzy drink stood in a row, the girls came very close, and they stood as if they were showing off on a podium. Here we are. Look at us. Bare shoulders, armpits with gray fluff, a large purple nipple with a piercing, and how can you resist? You'd think the girls weren't selling energy drinks but themselves. Flashed through my head. I was at work, girls. I was at work. They passed by, smiling. One of them, the one who had addressed me, suddenly caught my eye, winked, and nodded to the side, pointing at a strange man standing like a statue in front of David's hologram. Or maybe she wasn't nodding, and I was imagining it. In any case, I noticed a man dressed in a long gray raincoat that looked like a crumpled plastic bag. He and his clothes stood out from the general picture of a bustling shopping center. Police intuition patted me on the shoulder, pointing a finger meaningfully at this stranger. A suspicious guy. Let's check, she whispered to me, and I, not believing that I still had the strength, got up from the bench. The man stood motionless, holding the hand of a child dressed in some rags. I didn't see the child from a distance. Now everything seemed understandable. A beggar was trying to make me feel sorry for him at the expense of a small child. Only there was no box for money anywhere. With police intuition, we tried to look presentable. Sorry, I'll just take a couple of minutes. Please state your civilian identify. Before I could finish speaking, the man took off running, leaving the child behind. I rushed after him. At first, he managed to break the distance by about 20 meters. But pushing with all my might, I caught up with him, grabbed the sleeve of his plastic raincoat as he ran, and pulled him towards me. The man almost fell, but I held him, and then I checked his liver with a strong uppercut. He coughed. I added a painful kick to the knee. The man let out a short cry and began to fall, grabbing me by the collar and dragging me along with him to the floor. This idiot aimed his fingers at my eyes, but I twisted his arms and sat right on his chest. He groaned heavily, floundered. Then he stopped resisting. The small eyes of a dead mollusk dug into me, ready to burst into tears. The city is defecating children's tears. The man wheezed, baring his teeth. Under the dry skin of his lips, pieces of rusty enamel mixed with synthetic plastic were planted on his gums. He exhaled heavily, turned his unblinking gaze to the child he'd left behind, and looked back at me. And where is your god now? There was a painfully loud bang, someone's muffled scream, a sharp ringing in my ears. It seemed to me that my eardrums had burst, and a monotonous crackle was pouring through the leaky membranes into my inner ear. My head was ringing, everything was blurry before my eyes. For a few seconds I heard nothing. The man, whose arms I'd been holding tightly all this time, suddenly kicked up, threw me off, and rushed toward the exit. He was not deafened at all, but I continued to be tossed about. The noise in my ears did not stop for some time. Rats appeared with a bleeding hand. It exploded. "Right in the middle of the hall!" he shouted. "Are you okay?" "Yes," I nodded. "What happened to your hand?" "The glass in the dry cleaners was shattered. It was cut by shards," he answered. "Nothing serious." "Rats, I hear you. You don't have to scream. My head is splitting. We were lucky that it barely hit us. Others were less lucky. A shallow crater had formed where I had first noticed the suspicious man. There were no survivors at the epicenter of the explosion. The first floor hall was covered in human remains. Everything was covered in blood. The lemon girl was lying in an unnatural pose among the glass shards next to a counter that had fallen on its side. Her yellow skirt was stained with blood. The body of the second lemon girl was thrown even further. Only the hologram of David remained unharmed. The statue looked down at the people with disdain, and blue neon letters flitted around it like annoying midges. Second after second, people surrounded the scene. Some opened their mouths in horror at the sight of the corpses. Others, bolder and quicker, were already clicking away with their smartphone cameras. Photos and videos of what had happened were flying around the internet. The ringing in my ears gradually died down, and I could hear individual sounds, voices, and people talking again. For a moment, it seemed as if someone had shouted, "Cut," from the balcony on the top floor. I peered at the dead bodies, confident that the extras who had played the role masterfully would now wake up. All the corpses would rise and congratulate each other on the end of filming. No one rose. Rats called his wife and said that he would be late. He asked them not to worry. I didn't talk about what happened. They'll find out from the morning news today. I thought I should call someone too, for the sake of decency. But instead I checked to see if all my fingers were in place. The stupid feeling of a cut-off little finger wouldn't leave me. I formed a frame with my fingers and looked through it at the police officers who had arrived and were admonishing the crowd of onlookers not to approach the crime scene. One of them, with his arms outstretched, was loudly repeating, "Citizens, disperse. There's nothing to see here." Is there anything to see here? This is where it's at. The best part. I wonder how those radio hosts would comment on this. Takeshi, what's new on the internet? I imagine myself sitting in the radio station studio as a guest, answering in Takeshi's place, telling him in great detail about the explosion in the shopping mall, about the dead bodies, about the man with the eyes of a clam, about the hologram of David. Kiyoshi was listening attentively and nodding. At some point, his partner interrupts me. What does David's hologram have to do with it? He looks skeptically over our heads. They have the cheapest virtual servers in town. Kiyoshi shrugs. Takeshi grins. I don't think any server in virtual reality can recreate such a realistic image of an explosion. The future is just around the corner, I say. The three of us smile. Of course, the audience can't see it. In fact, this conversation is just a small rehearsal. Of course, such a sensitive topic, so many dead. We don't want any problems if someone says something wrong. The hosts get up from their chairs to stretch their legs. There's still 10 minutes until the real broadcast. The sound engineer behind the glass sips from a small thermos. He should also pour himself something before the start. When all the preparations in the theater of the absurd were finished, the last pressing question remained to be decided. What to fill a glass with neat whiskey or whiskey with coffee